Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're pleased to have Mr. Grant Hastings, a major in the Army in the 3rd Infantry. Good morning, Mr. Hastings. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
And if you would, tell us your story.
Well, I went to the University of Oklahoma and took ROTC and got my commission back in 1941. When the war broke out, I was called to duty, so I reported for duty 1st of February 42. I was assigned to the 3rd Infantry Division, and we were sent overseas in October of 42 and made a landing in North Africa on November the 8th. From there we went on to Sicily and southern Italy and the Anzio beachhead, and southern France, and on into through Germany into Austria. We covered, I think, we had a total of 10 campaigns, and we made 4 landings. So we had quite an experience. And I came home in September 45. I think we had a total of 35 months overseas.
What were some of your responsibilities over there?
Well, I was a forward observer for about a year and a half, and I traveled with the infantry, which was a real experience. And I'm very fortunate to have survived. I think I can't quite believe it that I did, because that's a hazardous job with the field artillery. To forward observers they don't last too long. But I was never wounded.
What exactly is that? You went ahead of?
I went with the attacking elements.
Okay. And you told them where to bomb? Or?
Well, I supported their advance. In other words, the infantry would be assigned an objective, and the artillery would support them to try to knock out enemy resistance. And so we had to be up where we could see what needed to be eliminated if possible. So we sometimes were times we were ahead of the elite elements. Most of the time we were with them, but we'd get caught in battles just like they did. Only we were trying to direct artillery fire instead of shooting with a rifle. But I had a lot of close experiences where I got the heck scared out of myself. In fact, I think I was scared the whole time, but like everybody else. I assume they were. I think I can remember one man. I don't think was. I used to try to describe him to people and say he had ice water for blood. He was Maurice Britt. He was from Arkansas, and I was with him when we attacked the hill of Rotundo up in Italy, and we got trapped up there. We walked into a trap, and one of my most memorable moments or times during that 14 days we were there, the day after we pulled back, we had stragglers. I think we had about 20 guys out of the company that were together. The rest of them were either killed or wounded or missing. And Colonel Lyle Bernard, who was commander, gathered us up, and he put a white handkerchief on a stick. We walked out into the open, waving the stick, and we were gathering dog tags off the dead and trying to get their bodies back. And the Germans, you could look up on the hillside around us, and they had their machine gun emplacements up there where they shot at us when we got they bolt flares when we went in at night. It was just, and anyway, I won't go into detail, but the point I'm trying to make is the Germans didn't shoot at us, and they stood up and watched us gather up our dead people. It always impressed me. So there were some human beings on the German side
that we rarely hear about.
It was not something was never written about, or in fact, we were the only one that even knew about it, I guess. But it was kind of fun, an interesting thing to happen.
You told me earlier that you're in the 3rd Infantry. That's the same division that Audie Murphy was in?
Yeah, Audie Murphy was in the 15th Infantry. I supported the 30th Infantry. It's all in the 3rd Infantry Division. You have 3 infantry regiments, and I think Audie Murphy was on the Anzio beachhead. There was a tank I was shooting at, and it lobbed one back at me, but it was armor piercing. It wasn't in the ground, didn't go off, and Audie knocked out a tank on Anzio, and that's where he got one of his first medals. And I think that was the tank he got, because that's the only tank I saw. That would happen after we made the landing. And I can remember when we went ashore, it wasn't heavily defended as the S2 reports had indicated it would be. So we made our objective on the highway coming from Casino up to Rome. The main line of supply was our objective, and had a railroad went alongside the highway, and we were standing on the highway and radioed back to division that we reached our objective. Wait for further orders, and they said pull back and dig into Mussolini Canal, which we'd already crossed about a mile back, or there close within a mile. And the reason being we didn't have enough to support our advance. And so we got stuck on the Anzio beachhead for 4.5 months. And it was just kind of like, being on a football field and the people in the stadium shooting at you. They had all the high ground, and we couldn't move in daylight without getting shot at. But we broke out of there, and I remember running into another tank on the way out. I turned to run back, and something told me to hit the ground. When I did, the round went off right beside me and blew my helmet off, but didn't hit me. That's what I'm saying. I was just real lucky to get out of it in one piece, but I made it. I ended up the war with, after we had crossed the Rhine, got into Germany, ended up in Salzburg, Austria, and then we were making loading plans to go make the assault landing on the Isle of Japan, and they were going to send the 3rd Division in as a spearhead. Now we weren't even going to be sent home first, just straight from where we were. And you can imagine how we look forward to that.
Well, how did you feel? I mean, you did 3 years stint in the European.
I just felt, well, I'll never survive that.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But anyway, they dropped the bomb, and we were, we had a little club we'd formed. When the news came across, and they had the Opera House across the street from where we were, and we ran outside and started shooting the windows out with a revolver. I'm not very proud of that, but I'd probably do it again. But anyway, the colonel called me in a short time after that and made me the town major of Fritzlar, Germany. My job was procurement for American troops that were put into that area. And that was a. I had one that was an interesting story, but I had one that just popped in my mind. If I have time, how much time do I have? I want to tell you one of the saddest stories, memories I have. While we were in Italy, we had a officer, captain, named John Doherty from California. Anyway, they issued bazookas, which was an anti-tank weapon you could fire from the shoulder. Just a soldier could shoot at a tank with it. And John was and the sergeant were introducing it to the battery, and the round went off prematurely and killed him. And I can remember his body being on a marble table, dripping blood on the ground when the Italian priest was saying last rites. Anyway, later on we got into France. His brother, Joe, who was a second lieutenant at the time, was a general's aide to a general in England. He was out of combat, and he requested transfer into John's outfit. And eventually he showed up, and he was assigned to my battery. By that time I was a battery commander, and they assigned Joe to my battery. Well, we were short-handed on forward observers. We couldn't keep forward observers. They were just, we'd get one, they'd get wounded or killed, and we'd have to replace them. And we didn't have enough second lieutenants in the outfit to send out. But I had they sent one. We finally got one in. Joe, I had to send Joe out as a forward observer, and he came in. I relieved him when I replaced him they finally sent me a replacement, and I replaced Joe with this new guy, and called him in. He came back into headquarters. I told him, spread out your bag here and get some rest, and we'll talk tomorrow. But radio came on, and this guy sent out there, called in. He says, I'm shutting her down, coming in. I'm surrounded. And Joe heard him. He jumped up, went out and grabbed up his crew and went back out, reported back in. He said, I'm in position. Give me a converter sheaf, constant fire, and gave me coordinates. And this was in the fire direction center when we worked when this happened. And Hardy Evans S2 plotted right on top of Joe. And he told him, hey, Joe, this plot's right on you. Joe said, I know it, I'm surrounded. Let us fire. So we fired. And no more Joe. I mean, we killed him. And as Harvey would say, now you know the rest of the story. I'll tell you the rest of the story. After the war was over, we had a little officers club set up, like I told you about before. And since we were sitting there, and some guy walks in and pulls out a chair and starts to sit down, and I looked at him and I looked familiar, and suddenly I recognized he was that guy that I'd sent out to replace Joe. And he was about to try to make himself welcome. And I stood up and grabbed him. I was just getting ready to clobber him, which was against the orders, but I couldn't help myself. And that battalion commander was with us. He grabbed me. He said, sit down, Hastings, I'll rank you. This is my job. And he grabbed him and he threw him on the floor. And he said, you SOB, crawl out of here. And the time I count 3, if you aren't out of here, I'm going to shoot you right in the ass. Excuse my language. But the guy started to run out, and he said, hey, I said, crawl. He got down on his hands and knees and started crawling, and he gave him the slow count. 1, 2, just as he turned the corner, he fired around on the terrazzo, floor bouncing behind him. He wasn't trying to hit him. That's the last I saw the guy.
Joe was a pretty brave young man. Give his life.
Joe, oh
Joe,
yeah. But this one family lost 2 boys right there in the same outfit. The only two sons they had, the Doherty family. Sad story.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You got it right.